was knocking my whole table around. Hello out there in the world today. It's Hello, and I'm back with another reaction video. Because, we are inching closer and closer to 4,000 crew members. Oh, goodness. So now, today we have Nepisiguit Runaway train 34 years later. From Thunderbolt. Whew. Seriously though, we're getting close to 4,000. I'm happy about that. It's gonna be good. Can we get at least 4 likes on this video? Oh, by the way, I got myself a ring light, like a bunch of other YouTubers have. It's awesome and it's beautiful, and I didn't get it for like a super high price. So I'm happy about that. That's something to be happy about. So without further ado, here we go.
Being trapped on a runaway train can be a terrifying experience for anyone. You could easily get killed or injured. And often, with how heavy trains can be,
really Jason's microphone quick already.
It's very hard to get it to stop.
I told you something was up. Maybe we're on some express run or something. Wake up.
You better watch your mouth. I don't care if it was censored.
One such railroader by the name of Wesley McDonald had such an experience, and it is one he will never forget. On March 9th, 1987, 60-year-old Engineer McDonald was operating Canadian National Work Extra 9548 on the Nepisiguit subdivision. He was going to perform a series of switching maneuvers at the Brunswick mines, where the train was to collect 23 cars. The train consisted of 2 General Motors diesel GP40-2Ws, numbered 9548 and 9457. These were Canadian builds that were almost identical to the American Electromotive Division GP40-2s, sporting the same build style and prime mover, but with a wide cab instead of the EMB standard cab. To get the cars they needed from the yard at Brunswick Mines,
we're playing a game now.
Initially to withdraw a total of 31 cars from the yard, but for the first move they would take 23, or so they thought. Engineer McDonald was a low lead engine, and as it instructed, he coupled the engines with the cars in tracks B226, B225, and B224, culminantly in that order.
B more numbers!
He was then required to initiate a reverse movement back from track 24 toward the yard limit. At the beginning of his backward movement, Engineer McDonald could not be aware of how many
Pay no attention to the plastic bag. I got that for another purpose.
Approximately 23 cars. It is common ground that his view was obscured by covered gondola cars coupled to the engines, as well as by the snow, so he would have to rely on communications with Trainman Court via radio, who would be an extra set of eyes for him. Court contacted him on the radio and advised that there were 23 cars in the movement and that the air...
This man burping while we narrating over this.
It is common that in switching cars from one track to another, that a train may generally rely on the brakes of the locomotive, as the cars being switched around are not being hooked up to the air brake system. This was normal practice at Brunswick Mines at the time.
I'm paying attention, Gladys.
When it's fully assembled, the air hoses are then hooked up so all the cars have their own braking force, and on they would go. In their normal course, therefore, assuming a load of 23 cars, McDonald would not expected any need to couple the air brake system until he had completed assembly of his train. Unbeknownst to the engineer, however, and contrary to the impression he took from whatever Trainman Court may have said, he was in fact pulling 31 cars, all heavily loaded with ore, not 23.
31 cars! I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Why is that a big deal?
Lengths from the yard switch, and then applied the full service application on his locomotive's independent brakes. However, to his horror, the train did not slow down. It instead accelerated. At that point, his 2 locomotives...
I mean, we gotta do it like 31 cars.
The number of cars were on a 1.19...
You gotta move like you got a purpose.
Grade, and Engineer McDonald realized he was quickly losing control of his train. He then applied the emergency brakes, But they had no effect either. The train continued to accelerate down the hill. The engineer was now the only.
I feel like I'm just looking at the same cars passing by.
The others
The
being
exact
in the boost, which
same
was uncoupled on
cars.
track 221 in the
Except they don't look
switching
like 78197.
Yes, go ahead. Over.
This does not sound like 1987. This sounds like 1947.
We grabbed a bunch of cars back into the mines and we can't hold them. She's way on us there. How's number 14? 14 left Bathurst at 0818. Over. Okay, let us know she's by
You could just call it 818. I mean, what's with the zero if it's like the first digit in the number?
All right. Yeah, all right. How many cars is there? Yep, over. We had all of us 30. Don't. All right, now. 50. She's going 50.
There's some nice cars back there.
You got no control over Wesley?
What if you can get those for
Are
cheap?
you coupled to those cars, over?
I could really go for a vehicle myself.
Then all the goddamn mix up
I'd much
around the
rather
road.
have a vehicle than an ad. Sheesh. I'm not focused on eBay at this time.
The train then flies down the grade, reaching speeds of over
Fly?
75 miles
It doesn't
an
have
hour.
wings.
The engineer leaves the cab of the lead engine toward the first car.
Don't use that as a
and
metaphor.
instantly
I don't really
tries
think
to
it's
apply
gonna
the
go up in the
handbrake on
sky.
the car.
Don't
which
ever
had
use that
no
as a metaphor
effect.
again.
All he could do now was fall back.
That's like
to
saying
his
Sonic the
second
Hedgehog can
locomotive
fly.
and just hold on and pray. He also grabbed hold of the train horn valve, blowing the horn at crossings and through towns, warning people of his runaway train. During the 20 minutes of the train's descent, the dispatcher, who stayed in radio contact with Engineer McDonald, was able to warn other trains and work crews of the runaway.
Entry number 14 here. We're buying a Nepisiguit now. Yeah, all right. The reason why I'm telling you that is the ore train has a runaway train on the Nepisiguit stop, but he can't get her stopped. He's heading for Nepisiguit about 50 miles an hour. He lost his air. Over. Okay, we're by there now. Don't worry about that.
He then notified emergency services of the ensuing emergency and to prepare for the worst.
Wesley, is there no way that you can get off of that train?
Don't mind me.
For the love of heavens, over. I can't get off her. Well, I think you better bail off into a snowbank if you can do it at all. Oh, right, I don't know.
The engineer stays on the train instead. It was clear if he was going to go down with his train, he'd go down fighting, trying to see if there was any other way to slow or stop the runaway.
Wesley, are you alone in that engine? Would you repeat that, please? Over. Farmer Dempsey, can you open one of those switches at the Nepisiguit so he can get out of the main line if he can make it, and whatever one you think is the best? Over. No, we never make it to Thatcher. We're about 2 miles from there now. Get the hell away out of the way. Well, get the hell out of the way then, Farmer.
As the train approached the
You heard the guy.
junction of the
Get out the way.
Newcastle subdivision,
Without the
the
H word
engineer
part.
sat on the floor of the cab of the second locomotive, bracing himself for impact.
You! I thought it was about to hit the pole. I don't know if that sounds like a tornado. I see nothing.
Hello, Bathurst Station. The end of Thatcher. The end assistant superintendent, over. You in Bathurst, sir? No, I'm in Hamilton. Can you get hold of that train somehow? No, I can. I'm trying to get a hold of the driver. He won't answer me now. He was the only one on it, I think. The van is still at the mines. The train broke away. Yeah, if you can get hold of him, tell him that when he comes to a stop, and hopefully with no injuries or anything, tell him not to move until we're all on there. Well, then he hit the switch in the busy with about 70 miles an hour, so I don't know where you're going to find him at. Okay, tell him I don't want anything to move when he comes to a stop. Well, if he can do that switch of the busy with Ben, I imagine he's at a stop all right in the woods somewhere. Yeah, well, hopefully not. End Thatcher, hunking over. The end of dispatch of Oxford. Yeah, we're coming into west here now. He's off the track. That's right around the shack at the Nepisiguit. How bad is she off there, can you see?
The locomotives and all 31 cars left the track, doing almost 70 miles an hour at milepost 0.34 on the Nepisiguit subdivision. The engines came to a rest on their side with the hoppers strewn all over the area. Some maintenance men working on the track bed near the derailment saw the train speed by and ran toward the wreck, expecting McDonald to be dead.
Tyler, can you see how badly he is derailed?
Oh, I was paying attention. The man's name was McDonald? Does the man don't want to
yeah, where are you at,
fillet a fish right now specifically? I was going to say a cheeseburger. I'm really in the mood for a fish sandwich.
Can you see the engines? They look to be on their side. I'll get back to you right here.
Miraculously, Engineer McDonald had survived the violent crash, and he crawls out the second engine. He was clearly shaken and suffering cuts and bruises, but he was lucky to escape with his life.
Yeah.
Fortunately, no fire occurred in the engines, despite the fuel tanks being punctured. The cost of the derailment exceeded $1.2 million. Now,
Who's got that kind of money? I don't. Shoot, I'm not even monetized yet. Hopefully one day. That's cute.
As stated before, it's common for switching maneuvers to not require the air hoses being hooked up, especially at the mines. Also, there was no way McDonald would have known he was pulling 31 cars instead of the 23, since there'd be little difference in the acceleration of the train, since the engines had more than enough power to move either number of cars.
So despite the fact that it was like
The brakes
8
were
extra
suspected
cars,
to have
it
failed.
really made no difference.
However, they were found to be in working order on the engines.
That's not
The
horsepower,
engines
that's bull
blamed
power.
the engineer, since he took too many cars and did not hook up the air, which was against a bulletin stating all trains switching at the mines must have the air hoses hooked up at all times. However, in an interview with the engineer, he stated had he had known he was pulling 31 cars instead of 23, as he was told, he would have never made the reverse move unless the air was hooked up. Despite this, he was still found at fault by the company and was given a 6-month suspension. The other crew members also got similar punishment. However, loads of people did not approve of Engineer McDonald's suspension. Now, here's where it gets interesting.
Oh, was it interesting before?
Such as the Brotherhood
No wonder I had my
of
head
Locomotive
down.
Engineers argued
That flat
to
looked
have the
ugly
air
for
brakes
whatever
hooked
reason.
up on switching maneuvers at the mine at all times was only put in after
It's
the
all like weak
accident,
and withered.
yet still on the same day.
Like those
It
trees.
also be noted that CN and the Canadian Transport Committee were both aware of the practices, but did not act upon them until after the accident. Plus,
I just
them
love
not
when people just
enforcing
wait
it
till the
earlier
last
to
minute to
prevent
do
such a
stuff.
runaway would
If they
actually
even
make the
bother to do
company
it at the last
itself at
minute.
fault. They also argued the engineer had over 42 years of service with Canadian National, and that he stayed on board the train trying everything he could to stop or slow the train until it hit the curve. The engineer also blew his horn at crossings, warning people of the oncoming train. Even Bathurst Mayor Douglas Williamson opposed the suspension of the engineer, stating, "How could CM be so crass as to suggest his guilt after he risked his life to stay with the locomotive until it derailed?" Other factors include the brakes on the locomotives. The locomotives in question were fitted with composition brakes instead of the traditional cast iron brake shoes, which were known to be problematic. Also, because the locomotives were a slightly older design, they were not equipped with dynamic brakes. Had the locomotives been equipped with dynamic brakes, they likely would have been able to hold on to that grade. 9 months later, the engineer was finally cleared of any fault for the accident, and also had his workers' benefits and pension reinstated, allowing him to peacefully
I need the
retire
benefits.
not long after on
I mean, I don't know how much a
November 1st,
conductor gets
1980.
paid, but I would want
He
those
says
benefits.
He enjoyed the
I would
railroad and the
need
company,
those
but
benefits.
just thinks the higher-ups are just not reasonable. Yes, he made a mistake, but the punishment didn't fit the crime. He definitely felt like he was being used as a scapegoat, as CN saw an increase in derailments around that time.
That's a Joey Wheeler spell card.
Infamous head-on collision that hinted just 1 year earlier when a CN
Wait.
increase in derailments around that time, including the
you
head-on
John
collision that hinted just 1 year earlier when a CN
maybe they had the Patara earrings. I don't know.
Incapacitated crew slammed head-on into a Via Rail passenger train. That wreck landed CN in very hot water. He's lucky
Must
to
have been
be
some fake
alive,
earrings.
but will never forget the most terrifying 20 minutes of his life on that runaway. He has sadly since passed away in 1997.
EVE Online is a vast universe.
Stop talking about Eve.
As for the locomotive,
Nobody cares
both
about
was
Eve.
embankment repaired and returned to service with CN. 9548 would be sold to the Yadkin Valley Railroad in North Carolina sometime in 2004, until being sold again in 2009 to Knoxville Locomotive Works. Today, the engine is now part of the Lancaster and Chester Railroad of South Carolina. 9457 was sold to Railcar Limited in 2005 until being sold again in 2011 to New England Central, renumbered to 3015, and is still in service as of today. Brunswick Mines would close in April of 2013 after suffering a series of economic ups and downs. 34 years have passed since the incident, and the memories of this harrowing experience will likely stay fresh in several people's minds forever.
Just like the snow on that car. Yeah. That was interesting, the parts I was actually paying attention to. Alright, you guys want me to look at more train crashes and stuff? Let me know in the comment section. Until next time, I'm Sin Love, and I'll see you guys soon!